Patricia Wells Trattoria cookbook has a recipe for Swiss chard Parmesan torte. So I'm going to pick this Swiss chard and I'm going to add a couple of pieces of kale because I like the texture that adds, and bring it in the house and prepare it. Swiss chard and kale both do pretty well into the fall months, so I'm hoping to prepare this recipe a few more times. The recipe calls for the Swiss chard to be cut in small pieces and then chopped in a food processor. But I don't like greens to be exposed to too much metal, so I just chop them by hand into small pieces. And I did add some zucchini flowers to this, just because I had them. Season the Swiss chard, kale, and zucchini flowers with salt and pepper, and just put them in the pan for a couple of minutes so they wilt and all the moisture gets out. The Swiss chard, kale, and zucchini flowers are ready, and the recipe doesn't call for it, but I like to add some pinoli nuts, and I just toast them for about 3 or 4 minutes. The pastry calls for 1 cup of all-purpose flour, a 1/4 cup of water, a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Mix it all up in a bowl. Put the pastry on a kneading board and knead it into a nice solid ball. That's good enough, and compared to making homemade lasagna from scratch, this is so easy. I'm going to cook the torte in this container, so with a rolling pin I'm going to roll out the pastry to about that size. Roll it out on one side slowly, turn it over, and roll it out some more. That's pretty good, and this doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to put it in the container and shape it up. So with my fingers now, I'm going to stretch this pastry out and get it up along the sides of the container so it looks real pretty. 3 eggs beaten into a bowl. The recipe calls for a cup of grated Parmigiano cheese, but I probably use closer to 2 cups, and I also add some Romano. Mix the cheeses into the beaten eggs. Add the toasted pinoli nuts and mix it some more. Add the Swiss chard, and in my case the zucchini flowers and the kale, and stir it up again, and I let it sit. I like to get the pastry up along the sides of the container. The recipe doesn't call for that, but I think it adds a nice crispiness and texture. After 5 minutes of cooking the pastry, I add the filling and spread it out evenly. In the oven now for 45 minutes. Chef Wells recommends a prosecco with this. How could anybody disagree with that? Guarda com'è bella. Buon appetito! Ciao ciao! Grazie per la compagnia!